Alright, on to the core install for the Magnetechs. If you're doing rope, you're going to want to get yourself a lighter. You're going to want to get yourself a number 2 Robertson square screwdriver. You're going to want to get yourself a small Phillips or flathead. A set of needle nose if you're using the rope. It can sometimes help for the swivel. So let's get going on this. Let's show you the swivel first. So these cores are the same. They do the rope and the swivel. There's also a different core for 10mm rope. The only difference is that this hole is a lot bigger. To get the swivel in there, commonly hold it just kind of like that. I pinch the walls of the collar down so that being pinched it ovals a bit. It's actually quite easy to get the bulk of that ring in there. It's okay if it deflects. Eventually you can use your hands and just push it all the way in. When that's on, you can use the screws. I usually just put the second one on the side just so that it's stored. You don't need it for the swivel. You will need it for the rope. But I just keep it there in order to keep it from getting lost. So that's it for swivel. Most of the time, 99% of the time, unless you ask me to do it otherwise, I will send the whole Magnetech pre-assembled if you choose swivel. If you choose rope, I'll send it partially assembled or fully assembled. It's up to you to ask me which way you'd like to go, but I will show you how to take these apart so that you can do your own rope install. So let's carry on with the rope. I've already cut my rope to length. Before I put it into the core, now's a good time to actually put the lid onto the rope. So I usually put it there's essentially a flat part of the lid and then a narrow part of the lid. I put the narrow part towards the poi head. Usually after cutting your rope, you might need to tidy up the ends. Usually take a lighter to do this and just cook it for a little while. Just the end. I usually go until I'm confident that the elastic core of a stretch cord is fused to the outer shell. You'll see why when we pull it through with a needle nose. If we don't, actually I've fused it pretty good so you might not see it, but if you don't fuse the core of the stretch cord to the outside, when you grab it with the needle nose in the next step, you'll actually pull the inner core away from this and it can get a little messy and hard to install. So once it's taped, the other thing you want to do before I actually put it in there is, as you're lighting it, depending on the rope you choose, whether it's polyester or nylon, sometimes the ends spread out, and when you light it on fire, they solidify there. That'll make it hard to actually put it in here. So when it's melted and still warm, I'll take my needle nose pliers and I'll kind of just give it a light squeeze. I try not to oval it, just get it to pull the molten plastic that's bunched up into a bit of a cone shape. That makes it really easy to push and twist the rope into the core. So you just want to push and twist. If it's hard to do, try melting it again and bending down any sort of lumps that might catch on the inside. You can use up to 7mm ropes with this. And if you're using a nylon rope or a polyester rope, it's sometimes handy to actually cook the body of this ever so slightly so that it doesn't fray as it's being pushed in. Not with stretch cord though, you don't need to worry about that. Take the needle nose pliers. I usually just lay it flat, push them all the way to the back, give them a good squeeze, and start to pull up. It came up for the most part and out. And just like that, it's easy. Now, if you're wondering how much to actually leave out, depending on the cord you choose, like the contact cord will be stiffer and more dense than the elastic cord. With elastic cord, I've found that you can usually go about 50 mils of extra, and you can actually store this inside the chassis. If it's a thicker cord, you're only going to get about an inch or 25 mils of extra to store inside the cavity that I've left for you. It'll take some experimentation to figure out what is best for your setup, and you're going to have to kind of figure out and dial in the length of rope that you want. But you can store some of the extra rope inside the poi handle itself, which can help you to dial in your preference. Allows a little bit of flexibility. I take both of the screws, just like I did with the swivel, and tighten them in. It's important to do the second one, the second screw, because now we've got a crisscrossing pin that holds the rope into place, and the grip is quite strong. Remember that we will want to put the lid on before you did your rope. Now, if you've got an open cord and you don't have a poi end attached yet, now would be your time to do the lid. Otherwise, you're going to get frustrated when you get to the next step. So now we take our dot.xl, if you chose the dot.xl, and you want to take the depression side, face it down towards the earth, and then you want to have the button side up, mini USB facing to the top of the chassis. Once that's in there, take the core and have the side with the screw and the side with the rope face away from the dot.xl. Kind of just push it in there. Now the rope, I've got a little bit of a tail. You can manage that by pushing it down into the corner of that little gap, and you can accordion fold it until it sits in there nice and flat. The lid then goes on. Sometimes it takes a little bit of getting used to get that thread to catch. Whoops, wrecking everything. And a final push along the edge seals it shut. The final step is to take the magnet cup, slide it into the hole, take the machine screw, which has that tight thread. I usually just give it a hand turn, or I start it on my screwdriver to get it started. Might just get in there with my screwdriver. And go, go, go. You don't need to go super tight on this. When you install the magnet, you'll want to pay attention to your polarity direction. There is a little dot on one of the sides of the magnets, and it just pops in. To get everything apart, if you want to adjust your rope, installation is the opposite, disassembly is the opposite of installation. And you want to take that flathead or that small Phillips, there's that slot in the magnet cup, and you can pry under the magnet to get it out, just like that. The side of this will flex a little bit. Don't worry about it. Don't torque on it too hard. If you know how to get some leverage with your tool, you can usually use your finger to lever against to do that prying motion. Takes some getting used to. Once you've got this out of there, you can essentially undo that, get back into the core, and do any sort of mods you need. But usually when I'm doing length adjustments, I let the magnet happen last. Like once I'm happy with all my lengths, then the magnets are easy. You don't have to keep going at it. And that's really all there is. Thanks for watching.